Hi, I'm Mary and this is Max. Max is 16 and a half years old, which in human years equates to sort of early to mid 80s. And Max is what is colloquially known as a kidney cat. So this means he has renal disease or chronic renal failure, known as CRF. Having CRF means that he needs some special care. So why we made this video, Max and I, is because receiving a CRF diagnosis can be scary, and I want people to understand that caring for and nursing a kidney cat is really very manageable. Initially, it's mainly controlled with diet. So what you'll see here is care for the advanced stages. Max was first diagnosed back in March 2015, and his disease has progressed really slowly, which is wonderful. However, in September last year, we lost his littermate brother very suddenly, also to renal disease. Even though they weren't close, Max's world just fell apart, and he suffered a series of illnesses and hospitalizations that, combined with his advanced years, just sent him into a bit of a decline. During all of this time, one day he just decided to stop eating. When I could convince him to eat again, there's no way he would touch dry food, and hasn't since. So this isn't a problem in itself, it just means his wet food needs are great. He has to eat a lot. He was also totally syringe fed for about 6 months, so getting him back to independent eating was just awesome. But it means that Max's food issues are a little bit different from your average kidney cat. However, in hindsight, we realised that a lot of it was probably due to esophagitis. Cats with CRF can often get a lot of ulcers down their throat and therefore problems with the esophagus. So it is all related. Chronic renal failure can potentially cause a myriad of other issues that need to be balanced, because kidney function controls and affects so many other organs and functions of the body. So areas such as blood pressure, anemia, potassium, and nausea can come into play. See you soon, buddy. So the 3 areas that this video will look at are medication, hydration, and nutrition. It's basically what a day looks like in our life. So there are things that I need to do for Max every day, and there are other things that just happen a few times a week. You'll see us warts and all, no hair or makeup, sleepy faces. I think my dressing gown even makes an appearance at some point. Yes, my 9-month-old kitten Gracie will also pop in. The tasks in the video were all recorded on different days and different times, so I might repeat myself a few times. I apologise for that. I just hope I don't contradict myself. But first up, let's just have a look at Max's general weekly routine. This calendar here is the Bible of Max. It's just a printable calendar that I found online, and you just go and fill it in. Its main purpose is to keep me on track, so I know what's happening when, but it also serves as just a really good record of what's going on for the vet. So I add other things in as well. So basically we have, focus, so here's medications. So every day, so Monday and Tuesday is a normal day. We have a metamide injection in the morning and one at night. Now that's just to keep any potential nausea at bay. The amlodipine is for his high blood pressure, and the hypercal is for his low potassium. On Sundays and Thursdays, he also has fluids. On Wednesdays and Saturdays, he has microlone, that's half a prednisone. And on Fridays, he has Avanza, and that's his appetite stimulant. Now, he can have a quarter of a tablet every second day, but we get by on just 1/8 of a tablet once a week, and it just kick-starts him. And then that's one of the other things I write on here. So I write how much food I've given him, so we can see how much he's eating. We also write if he's had, so that's a medication vomit. So if there's been any vomits or any diarrheas, not much on this one because he hasn't had much, which is good. If we go back to last month's, there was a little bit more going on. We had, whoops, come on, focus. Vomits, diarrheas, bile, regurgitated his medication, 2 tries of fluids, did it again the next day. So what it does, I said, it gives me and the vet a good picture of everything that's going on, but also we can see really easily if any patterns are establishing. Like initially I was looking at when he had diarrhea in relation to when he had the Avanza medication, and that seemed to be forming a real pattern, but now it's stopped. So whether his body's just adjusted to it, either way. So yes, this is my Max Bible, and then as I've done each thing I cross it off. Keeps me on track, keeps all our information in one place. Okay, morning routine. The first thing that happens is he has a metamide injection, but I've already done that because I do that as soon as I get up and he's still lying somewhere, and get him when I can grab him, but we'll have a look at the evening one later on. Then he has about 2 mils of natural yogurt. So this does a couple of things. Obviously the prebiotics in it are going to help his tummy, but also because of the esophagitis, it helps just to ease his throat and give it a bit of a coating. So even though he has it a few times a day, that's why I like to do it before his medication, because then he has a giant tablet. This is Hypercal. This is for his potassium. That has to hurt. That would hurt a healthy human going down. So these are everyday things. Then he has, this is amlodipine, and this is blood pressure medication. I have this compounded into a suspension because it's another human drug, and the tablets would need to be broken down so small that they would just all break apart. So I have this compounded. It's supposed to be, this one's supposed to be tuna flavor, but he hates it with a passion. And he can hypersalivate it really easily, so he pulls it all towards the front of his mouth and shakes his head around and throws it all over. So I learnt back in our days of syringe feeding, if I give him just a little bit of food, that will take away the taste, and then he just takes the whole thing a lot better. So I've just got to time that right. The only problem with all of this is it's starting to border back on the shoving too much stuff down his throat that he's trying to swallow, so he gets the gulps, and we know that it hurts him, so it's also good to just get it all done in one lot as well. At the moment he's hiding from me. Doesn't like doing it all. Really wish I could explain to him the logic of just let's get it done and then it's done for the day, because then his whole day is free. Today we have fluids, but he doesn't know that. Okay, so I'll go and grab him and we'll do this routine. Here we go. Now I usually like to have a little break. Oops, you're stuck. Between I usually give him the yogurt first. Good boy. Just, when he's walking around eating or doing whatever in the morning. But we haven't had a chance this morning. Of course he's gone into hiding. Okay.
Here we go. You want some yogi? Good boy. There we go. Good man. That's good, isn't it? Eh? I think that one had a fair bit of whey in it, so it wasn't too full. See the gulp? Good boy. So it does hurt him to swallow bulk things like that. Okay, now the fight begins. Ready? Do you want to swallow it yourself? Believe it or not, a couple of times he has. I haven't gotten it in his mouth very well and he's just swallowed it. Okay, here we go. Ready? Ready, steady. 1, 2, 3. Ah, I missed. Come on, swallow. No, I missed. Okay. Got it on the side of his mouth so it couldn't go down. Right. Okay, ready, steady. No, pour down please. Ready, steady. I can't get his head back. Ready, steady. Max, 1. Come on, ready, Max. Buddy, come on. Come on, baby. Okay, here we go. Ready? Just tastes chalky. It doesn't have a bad taste. Ready, steady, Max. 1, 2, 3. Good boy. Good boy. I basically have to stick my thumb down his throat. Not too pleasant for either of us. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, you gonna chase it? You gonna give it a chaser? Let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's go, Max. Good boy. And then get the food in. Good boy. There you go. Oh, minimal drips. That's okay. Good man. Good boy. We're done. How's that? Hey. Good boy. Hates having his face wiped. Good boy. Hey. Done. That was a pretty quick and painless one. Let's go. That's my boy. You good man? Good boy. Hey. Yeah, we love you. Okay. Let's see you later. We're doing fluids next. You can go and have a sleep for a while. You right? Good boy. If I can, it's not a bad idea to try and hold him just in case he regurgitates it all. And if he does, then we're right next to the sink. You got it? Good boy. Still doing a little bit of gulping. You need that nail cut. You caught? There we go. Good boy. Every morning and every evening, Max has an injection, which is a small dose of metamide. You might also know the name Maxilon. It's an antiemetic, so it's just for a little maintenance dose for any nausea that we assume he probably has at this point. That would be from the toxins that are in his system from the renal disease, and possibly also a little bit from the esophagitis, which will just be, you know, creating icky stuff in his throat and making him feel a bit awful, but generally from the renal disease. Oops, I was somewhat wrong with that last comment. Yes, it does help with the nausea, but that's just a byproduct of the fact that it's actually to combat his reflux. The reflux comes from the esophagitis, which comes from the kidney disease, but basically the purpose of that drug is to increase the speed of the passage of food, or the motility of the food, through the upper digestive tract. And it also helps to improve the muscle tone of the upper GI tract and the esophagus. So makes that area more comfortable, passes the food through more quickly, makes the area more comfortable, lessens the reflux, lessens the nausea that results from that. It's only 0.1 of a mil. It's not a lot. Because it's the first thing that happens every morning, he knows as soon as I set foot out of bed, he will go and hide. So I try not to make a big deal of it and try to just do it wherever he is. So sometimes it means getting him in very awkward spots. And they give it to me in, so I get 10 doses in one syringe, and so that means I have to push the plunger just to 0.1 of a mil, which can be interesting if he's somewhere where I can't see what's going on. At the moment, he's in his little cube bed, so he's all encapsulated in the cube, and I'll have to try and get both hands in and do it that way. So I'm getting better at estimating what it is, but you can't overdose on it, which is good. So if I do go a little bit over, that's fine anyway. This is my little bag of all my different size needles for things. So we're using a 25 gauge for this. Tried a few different ones. You want the needle to be small, so it's not bothering him, but if they get too short, then it's shorter than his fur, and I can't always see whether it's in or not. I've lost some doses sometimes from thinking that I was in and I wasn't, so I just squirted it nicely on the outside, or even accidentally somehow pushing the plunger when it's like that with the lid on and pushing the dose into the lid, so that's a bit frustrating. He knows this sound too. So this is a light sensitive drug, and it needs to be kept under cover, so I just pull it out quickly normally when I need to do it. So this is hygiene practices. We don't want to touch the top of that, and we can't touch the top of the syringe where this needle comes off. Also, if there's any air bubbles, this is the point where we would try to flick that up to the top. Sometimes you get an air bubble when you take it off, when you're changing it and you put the new needle back on, it will push some air in. So we push any air bubbles up to the top at this point. Give it a little twist, that's what we don't want to touch. Stick it back in there, and we're done. That'll go in my sharps container. And that's it. Now we just need to find the cat and stick the needle in.
Nighttime needle time. I try to just get him wherever he is, not go and put him up on the cupboard or anything, make a big deal of it. So this is a bit tricky to do with only 2 hands, because I need to tent the skin, hold him in place and get the needle in, and then sometimes need 2 hands on the plunger, but we'll see how we go. Okay, find some, yeah, he knows as soon as I dig here. Come on, bud. So tent the skin, just pull it up. Needle in under the tent. No, come on, buddy. I know, mate. So pull it up. Tent the skin. Needle under the skin. Is it even in, mate? Yeah. We get in? Yeah, we did. 0.1. There we go. Good boy. Good man. Good boy. And then we'll get that back out of the light. Hi, back with another job. A big part of keeping kidney cats comfortable and treating them properly is hydration. So a lot of what we do is trying to replicate the functions of the kidneys, take the stress away from the kidneys as well, because they're just not functioning properly anymore. So one of the things that we need to do is provide fluids for hydration. We do that subcutaneously, so just putting a needle under the skin. It helps the kidneys to function. So basically the kidneys are flushing toxins out of the system. If they're not functioning properly, then those toxins build up, and they build up in their bloodstream. They make them feel sick. And so keeping them adequately hydrated will help the kidneys to keep flushing. So number one, it makes them more comfortable. Helps to keep them hydrated, basically. It also helps to, and one of those things that it does with the hydration, it helps to move the red blood cells through the body. Kidney cats will often suffer from anemia. Max is pretty borderline. He's had iron shots and B12 shots, but he's doing okay at the moment. And also, just in that hydration, it's also about keeping the other organs hydrated. So I've
Max keeps himself really well hydrated. Like, he drinks a lot of broth and he wees a lot and he does all that. And usually when you tend his skin and drop it, it rebounds really well. Just in the last couple of weeks, he's been crying at the litter a bit. We've realised he's probably a little bit constipated, struggling. He doesn't try to go to the toilet. He goes in there and sort of realises that it's not going to happen. He looks at the litter tray and cries and walks away. So the hydration is important because it keeps all of those organs and things inside hydrated and plump and moving as well. So if I can keep enough fluids in him, the bowel will continue to operate well. So anytime he has fluids, usually he likes to go and have a big sleep afterwards, but after a couple of hours he'll get up and go to the toilet, which is great. So today's first job is changing the bag, because the old bag is empty and we're going to change it over to the new one. Pretty basic job, just requires a bit of brute force. Max currently he doesn't have just normal fluids now. He has Hartmann's solution, which has other things added, so some extra potassium, calcium chloride, sodium chloride, bits and pieces. But he also has 40 mils of a 5% glucose solution added in there as well, so it's a pretty bulging bag. I don't change the giving set or the infusion set every time. Basically, you could. They don't give me one every time, so I don't think they're worried about it, and they know that I'm really careful with hygiene as well. By the way, I have cleaned the whole surface down with F10 disinfectant, washed my hands and everything, so it's just very important to not touch anything that connects with the liquid. So this is all fine. This is all connected to a little prong that goes up into the bag, so we don't want to touch that prong, and we don't want to touch the end of where the prong goes in and out. That's the important thing. It does require brute force. I mean, there's no trick. I think if you're doing it every day, you'd get used to it. I'll be giving him fluids more often now, so hopefully I'll get a bit better with it. You want to make sure that this little dial here is what lets the fluids run or not. So when it's, sorry, the plane's been going over on and off all morning. So you don't do what I did last time and forget to close that off, so that as soon as I put the new bag on, the water started leaking out everywhere. So at the moment that's rolled down to the bottom, so that tubing is clamped shut and it won't come through. So we're going to just twist off the end of that one, given that's hard. Oh, that's right. So twist that off. Now we're going to, so I've got to be careful, I'm not going to touch it as it comes out. Oh, it's going down it. That's it. Okay. You said, yeah, it takes a lot of force. And then again, so we don't want to touch that at all. We don't want to touch this. So keeping them as sterile as possible, which is good that it gives you that little thing to push against, so you're not tempted to touch it. But this one's not going too badly. Often I have to get a tea towel down here and use some force that way. Not quite there, I might have to do that. It's a little bit rough on the fingers. There we go. Oh, a little bit more. A bit of twisting helps. That's it. Okay, that wasn't too bad that time. I've had a bit of trouble with this drip chamber. So this chamber is where we can see how the fluids are flowing, basically. And as soon as I put this set on last time, it just filled up straight away. Maybe because I'm pushing it a little bit in as well. You're supposed to be able to just turn it upside down and empty it back out. It doesn't. I've been trying over and over with it. I don't know. Oh, hang on. Wouldn't work with the last bag. Yes! Yes! Oh, it would not empty back into the last bag, and I just went through the whole last bag not being able to see how it was running or what I was doing. Oh, that's a big relief. Okay. I change the needle at every dose of fluids. I asked them about it, and because I'm not doing it so often, I'm not worried about changing this every time. Ideally, you give them a wipe down with a metho-soaked cotton ball first, but that sets him off worse than the needle does. So as soon as that metho hits his skin, he's off. And so the other alternative is just to change the needle every time, which I find easy. That's the other reason why I'm happy to keep this giving set. They have different types of ends on them, and this one's got a lovely little screw and spring where the needle goes in. Sometimes they just push in, and he's so clever at pulling the needle out and so strong with it, I just feel a lot more secure with this little twisty one. So again, it's just about not touching the ends. So we want to make sure we don't touch the end of the needle or the end of the tube where it's going back on. So we just half open it that way. So it's good because I can just screw this one so we don't touch that either. Pop that back on there. And we're done. Put that in the sharps disposal, recycling bin. You just need to have it somewhere where it can be, oh no, now that one's leaking. Clean it up in a minute. Where it can be suspended higher than the cat. Come on, through we go. Through we go, there we go. I hang mine up on my architrave. So it just hangs up that height, and then we do Max here. Because it's winter at the moment and it's a little bit cool, before I do the fluids, I'll actually sit this bag in a sink of warm water. Because it's a full bag, it will take a while. And the tubing as well. And that way, so we just get that to body temperature. It doesn't bother him as much. So he'll have the initial jump when the needle goes in, but then he doesn't really notice that the fluid's going in, and it becomes more about, hey mum, why are you still holding me here? Rather than him feeling this uncomfortable cool liquid going into him. So that was a pretty easy changeover, so that was good, kept everything nice and sterile. Now we'll just warm it up and get him ready to go. Okay, it's time for fluids. He knows the word. Oh, Maxie, no buddy. Come on, let me pop. Good boy. Okay. This is when he was being syringe fed. This was where we used to do it. When he has his medication, most mornings it's here, all facing this direction. For me to put the needle in with my right hand, I need him turned around the other way, so he instantly knows what's going to happen. So I'm trying to get better at doing it with my left hand. But it means you won't be able to see what I'm doing either. But we'll give it a go. So Max's best defense mechanism to this whole process is he pulls his head up and he pulls his head up and he pulls his body up tight, so he pulls all the skin down his back very taut. There's not a lot of flesh left there these days, it's pretty skinny, so it makes it quite difficult to find the spot to get it in. Oh no, Grace is coming. No, Grace. Okay. So it also means that while it's going in, I need to try and stop him coming up, because as he lifts his body up, that pulls the needle out as well. So being very careful not to touch. Hey bud. Yeah, so his first defense is to go up. No, sweetie, come on. I know, my baby. I know, baby. Come on, get those claws out. Oh. And his claws are old now, and they're really thick, and they're so hard to cut. Out we go, that's a boy. They're hard to cut, aren't they, hey? And they get caught in everything. They do. Yes, they do. They do. They get caught. I know. Buddy, come on. I got him while he was asleep on the floor 2 days ago. I had to lie down on the floor with him. But we did it. No, come on. Yeah, see, he really knows what's happening if I try to make him face that way. Oh, my baby, come on, you feel so much better afterwards. Wish you could explain it. You know, one tiny little needle prick and you're going to make you feel better for days. Really? Oh, you're a duffer. You're sure a duffer. You're a duffer? Come on. Oh, there's claws, mate. They just get caught in everything now. Okay. No jumping. No jumping. No jumping. No jumping. Put that paw down. This is the paw he uses to defend his big tablet every morning too. So hard to keep the needle from not touching anything. Come on. Okay, needle's in. Good boy. There you go. You okay? Good man. Okay, needle's in. So now we just release, roll up the wheel and let the fluids flow. There we go. Come on. Yep. Okay, bag's off. No, it's okay. So now, because he comes up, so I'm not holding him tightly. I don't want him to stress, but I need to stay over the head as much as possible to stop him jumping back up. I've got my hand over the needle site. Come on, bub. Part of the trouble is now that he's skinnier, that's flowing really well, which is good. There's not a lot of, when we're going under the skin, there's not a lot of space in there, and I don't think it takes much for it to hit structures, not necessarily wanting it to hit. Okay, we sing now, don't we, Bubby? Yes, we do. And we have special fluid songs too, don't we? It's especially important to tell you how much we love you while doing things, awful things to you. I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck, hug around the neck, and a barrel and a heap, barrel and a heap, and I'm talking in my sleep about you, about you, about do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. Always pushing. 'Cause I love you, a bushel and a peck, you bet your pretty neck I do. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. There's a lot of pressure in that head under my chin. He's supposed to have about 150 mils, 150 to 200. The amount of struggle in him at the moment, I doubt we're going to get to that. But again, wish we could get him to understand logic, because it just means I'll have to do it again. I'll do it again tomorrow. No, buddy, no. Oh, see, I took my eye off the ball. Once those paws are up, it gets really hard. Baby, baby, I'm taken with the notion to love you with the sweetest of devotion. We're not far off him being able to pull it out of his back now. Baby, baby, my tender love will flow from the blue sky to the deepest ocean. Stop for a minute, baby, I'm so glad you're mine. Oh yeah. And ever since the day you put my heart in motion, baby, I realize that there's just no getting over you. There isn't, no? There isn't over you. That's probably enough. So there's a good golf-sized ball like that under my hand. So we're going to turn it off. So that's pretty good because it's flowing really well. Lovely new bag. Clean towel. So we're going to put some pressure on that spot because there will be a little bit of leakage. So I just leave that there now. I'm just in the habit of, I change See, the focus is jumping around everywhere. I change the needle. It's same with his daily injections just before I do it, so then I remember that I've just done it. It's a fairly big needle, and there will be some leakage because it's going to put a hole in the skin, especially his old skin that's not as elastic. But what we're also doing is just putting gentle pressure on it to help massage that bolus through the rest of his body. So it just gets it moving. So put some pressure on to stop the leakage. Often I find little drips on the floor, or you'll come back like 2 hours later and it'll have a big wet streak down his skin. But yeah, that's a good size bolus. So that's, you know, under my hand like that. So yeah, it's starting to leak now. A little bit of pressure, very gentle massage, and we can do that with a couple, can't we? No, usually he's happy to sit here now. You right? Okay, I know, baby. So we'll go and put him down. He'll go to sleep for a while now, and hopefully that'll make him feel a lot better. So the only thing I have, it's been a big day. I'm making broth for him as well. He's had his injection this morning, 3 medications. We've changed the bag. We've done the fluids. Come on, buddy, really? So he can have a sleep now, and I won't have to bug him again until, oh, there he goes, until his injection tonight about 7:30. So he's got lots of peace and quiet now, and lovely fresh food in his bowl as well. And she's going back to his food now, which is great. So that's it until nightly injection. Kidney cats need to have their diet controlled. They need low levels of phosphorus and sodium because they're things that the kidneys will struggle to process, and good levels of the essential amino acids. The easiest way to do that is through specific prescription vet diets, such as this is the Hills KD being kidney diet, but the premium brands all have things specifically for their kidneys. Not all of his life, Max hasn't eaten loaf-style food, but now he doesn't have a choice. But I've also, you know, we've realised now that's because he only knows how to lick. But that also means that this is still too dense for him. So every day I need to basically pulverise his food. So that's what we're going to do now. They recently changed the recipe, and it's really hard to describe, but it's nearly like you can see all the tiny little microbeads of food, and they're all suspended in a fluid. So what happens is, I've got everything out except a teaspoon. So what happens is, to pulverise all the little microbeads can mean turning the rest a little bit too liquid. When it goes liquidy, it's been out in his bowl, it separates. So it's a balancing act I'm still trying to perfect. It looks pretty solid, but it certainly blitzes up quite differently to the old sort. Just got it in the middle. So as I said, this wouldn't be something that most people would need to do, but I need to get it in a lickable form. If there's too much texture in the food, because he only licks, what happens is he just keeps going over the top of it and ends up with dry, crusty stuff on the bottom, and he can't get it in, like he can't take it in, so he's not getting any goodness out of it anyway, and then I just end up with a mess to clean up out of the bowl. I do 2 tins because when he's first few days, in particular after he's had the appetite stimulant, the Avanza, he will get through 2 tins in 24 hours. Any more than that and it starts to go runnier than he would prefer to eat. So yeah, I guess it's pretty good balance, and then I'm not having to try and do it too often. I also put into here 2 capsules of New Zealand green-lipped mussel. There, I should grab it. This is, easiest way to say is it's for his arthritis. We don't know for sure that he has arthritis. He definitely has tenderness and stiffness through his rear half, and he walks a little bit funny on his back legs now. If it doesn't help, it's not going to hurt. I don't put all the second one in. That's also why he has the prednisone, just to keep that potential pain at bay. Well, not potential pain, to keep the pain at bay. It's not a big pain. I'm not letting him live in pain, but he's a little bit uncomfortable, so anything we can do to alleviate that is good. So here comes the noisy part. Have to do this in lots of little sections because, as I mentioned, getting that balance between the textured bits and the liquid, because what happens is it all goes liquid underneath, but we still have the textured bits on the top. So need to keep stopping and stirring that down, mixing it back in. Go again for a blitz. Something else that's happened with this new recipe is that it's thinner enough that it all shoots up into the lid. It's another way I can tell it's changed. I thought we were already using the new recipe because we were using we got new labels on the tins. But these last two pallets that arrived are definitely different in texture to the rest. The chicken's also different to the tuna. When I was syringe feeding him, I used to try both, and the chicken would go really chalky in his mouth. So when I'm shooting, 2 and 3 mils of food at a time into his mouth, he couldn't handle the texture of the chalkiness or the pastiness of the chicken. So he just doesn't eat that at all. So it's this or nothing. This is basically the only thing he eats now. Can't even tempt him with treats. It's this or nothing. Okay, I always think of this, which helps when you're dealing with it, the consistency of cake batter, which is what we're looking for. So it looks like a really pale chocolate cake. So pull the blade out. These little processors are a great size for this sort of thing, but they have some design issues. I wasn't using this much myself, like for my own private use, because I wasn't convinced it was hygienic. So what happens is, and anyone I've looked at replacing it, but anyone I've looked at has the same basic structure. Where the blade sits on it is a little spindle, so obviously all the food gets up there. When you try to rinse it out, it doesn't come out on its own, and I need to get a cake tester and actually get in and dig it all out. That's okay, I can do that, but where the plastic is joined, there's this, hair's width of the thing, but you can see the food gets up there. There's all food up in here. So to me it's just a bit gross. So I wouldn't use it for anything now except cat food. This is a little Gracie's daily treat. She's still obsessed with Max's food. So because it has the low phosphorus and the low sodium and everything, it's supposed to be pretty tasteless. And for a lot of people, their battle is having a cat that badly needs to eat. See, it's like cake batter. Having a cat that badly needs to eat, but having food that doesn't have a lot of flavour. So I'm really grateful that Max eats it. But for some unknown reason, yes, Gracie is absolutely obsessed with it. So this is her little daily treat. I put this down on the floor for her and she'll come and eat it. Normally, where'd she go? Yeah, but at the moment she just had another treat. So possibly won't bother. So that's that. Shouldn't have cleaned that off because I need to do the next step. Now the other thing that Max needs, because of the structure of our household, he has a microchip feeder. This is because Gracie is obsessed with his food. This will, the intention was that it would keep her out of his food. In here is a reader that reads his microchip. So the first problem we had with it was he doesn't crouch down to eat like most cats do. So he stands up and just puts his head down, so it wasn't always getting his chip. So they also supplied a tag with an RFID chip in it. So I'm not a big fan of collars on cats, particularly when they're just indoors. So he now wears a collar with that chip on it. So it will only open for him. Problem is, as a safety mechanism, if someone's head's in there, it's not going to shut. So she would hear it open, he would eat, she would come and stick her head underneath, and it would stay open for her, and she would finish his food. So I contacted them. They suggested the rear cover, so that stops her getting in the back, which is one thing, but it's got a special setting in it now, which they call an intruder alert. So now it will actually, she can stick her head in there and she can start eating, but then it will shut on her. So it doesn't stop her getting in there. Unfortunately, her sticking her head in there is enough to stop him eating as well. But why the obsession with his food, I don't know. She's got a myriad of other choices and much more tasty things. But that's her choice. It makes it a little bit difficult for us. So again, if I put, this is another balancing act. I don't want to be filling it up all day and be having to check it every hour. If I put too much in there and he doesn't get to it, it will starts to separate. You know when you get that awful supermarket deli corned meat and it gets that bit of a patina on it? That's what this starts to look like. It gets a little sort of reddy tinge where it splits. And he doesn't eat it. And when I look at it, I don't blame him either. And I think he's done most of his eating for this morning. So we'll just put in that much, which is probably a bit too much if he's done his morning eating. Okay, pop that back in there, close the lid. And that's Max's daily food processing, apart from coming back and refilling that many times through the day. Another job done. Here's Gracie having a wonderful time cleaning out the food bowl. Is that good, Gracie? Good girl. Something else that's done for Max a couple of times a week, this is a Max particular thing, not a general kidney cat thing. He prefers to drink a broth that I make for him rather than water. Basically doesn't drink water now at all because he always has this. Gracie is on a raw food diet, and I freeze all of, get her meat in bulk and do it up all in these packets. Now why it's good for Max is it's the meat, which is meat and bones and offal, but then it has supplements like egg yolks and taurine and vitamins E and B and fish oil. So it's a really nice nutritious little pack for him as well. Ends up a lovely clear bright yellow colour. And he adores it. That's what he digs around all the time. So I just take this out, put it in. It's about 250 grams. Excuse my dressing down. Put it in about a litre of water. Just need a little bit more in there. Put it on a low heat on the stove and just let it simmer for a couple of hours. Once it starts to reduce down, it gets quite a rich flavour, and I often dilute it a little bit at that point. So at least because it's all nice natural stuff, I can have a taste and see what it tastes like as well. yeah, so we'll show you what it looks like when we get to the straining several times process. Often have to do this probably 2 to 3 times a week for him, because he goes through quite a lot of it, which is great. Again, that's keeping him really hydrated. If he prefers the flavour of it to water and it means he'll drink 3 times as much, then that's a good thing. So here's the broth. Probably about 1.5 to 2 hours in. I'm not sure, because I put it on the wrong hot plate initially, so it was sitting there for about 45 minutes before I realised it wasn't getting warmer. It doesn't look very attractive, certainly doesn't look anything like the lovely clear yellow liquid we get at the end, and all of these dark frothy bits stick really badly to the saucepan. It always needs a really good steel wool job afterwards. But that's it. I flip the chunk of meat over. Even though the meat thaws, it stays in a chunk, which is really good because we have less sediment to deal with at the other end. So I flip that over in the water occasionally. But that's a very unattractive mid-cook broth, which Maxie absolutely loves. Okay, broth has now finished cooking and has cooled down. You can see that it's gone clearer now, so once it all settles, there's a lot of sediment on the bottom, but it's clear and oily. So first thing is to get the piece of meat out. Yeah, so it still, even though it's obviously no longer frozen, it still stays in that big chunk, which is great for handling. I'm going to keep the rubbish there because there'll be a little bit of scum and stuff to take off this. I want to get as little sediment as possible. I want it to just be a nice clear broth. So it goes through 3 different strains. So just a brand new clean chucks. The first one. Pour that in. So we're starting to go a little bit slower now and see if, look. I'll just let the scummy stuff come out, so it's pretty mucky in there. I need to rinse that out because I need that for the next step, just to try to minimise the number of containers I'm dirtying for the process. Just getting and I want as much broth as possible because he goes through a lot, and it's not the cheapest way to give him liquids. So I'm just scraping the sediment off just very lightly because I don't want to push any through the chucks. Max's food issues have definitely very much compounded the kidney issues. Though it would appear that much of it has come from esophagitis, which is from the kidneys anyway. So he's probably just been a little extreme in his reaction to it. Okay, so I mentioned before we get very scummy around the outside. This one's not too bad, but it definitely needs the steel wool to clean it out. Sorry, wasting water, not a good thing. It takes a long time for my water to heat up, so that's why I often have to run it longer than I would like if I need it hot. Set the easy. Okay, so that's pretty clean. Just going to rinse the sediment off there so I'm not transferring it from one to the other. Not exactly sure of wicking principles, but I think it's something to do with it. I find what happens here, once this whole thing is wet, it's more likely that the broth will spread to the outsides and leak off things. Okay, so now we're going back into the saucepan. You probably won't see there, but there's a lot of, no, you can't see, there's a lot of very fine stuff. I'll just throw that out at the end. Okay, then the last one is, I'm going to halve that. So all those little bits that got through before hopefully will not get through this time. And we're going into the container with a funnel. So 4 layers of the chucks. And this is where I find that even though I'm only pouring it, oops, too tall. Even though I'm only pouring it in here, sometimes the cloth will wick it and it will come out that way. But anyway, cross fingers, try and be careful. What I'll also do that I haven't done, just give it a little taste. Yeah, it's not too strong. I did accidentally put more water in than I intended to when I started it, so that's good. Doesn't need me to do anything else to it. So that's it. That's why we go through so much. Don't always get a lot. So it's in from there. Wash everything up. Throw the rubbish in the outside bin or it will attract a lot of flies. And there is Mr. Max's broth. That's a fair. You probably get about 3 or 4 days out of that. Another job ticked off the list for the week, or half the week. And here is Maxie drinking said broth. Good stuff, buddy, hey? Good boy. Usually dripping off his chin.
I've been trying to film this little outro for about 15 minutes and Max keeps walking in and out. So the fact that we now have his back to the camera is probably about the best I can hope for at the moment. Since filming the section about the calendar, Max's needs have increased for fluids and a couple of the ad hoc medications. But once the routine's going, it's really not a hassle to just change things around a little bit as needed. So balance is the key word. It's always about balancing one treatment with another. For example, fluids make him sleepy, so I don't want to give him fluids on the same day that I give him an appetite stimulant. So being starving when your body just wants to sleep, that wouldn't be very fair. Sometimes I have to work out which thing he needs more. And it can be the same with some of the ad hoc medications as well. We have up days and down days, and on the down days it's really easy to slip into panic mode. But generally Max is comfortable, he's engaged and he's happy. I'm not prolonging a life he doesn't want to be here for. He might fight his medication and his fluids, which you saw, but that's only 5 to 15 minutes out of his day, depending if it's a fluids day. The rest of the time he's, belly up on his heated bed and snoring his head off, or in his little cave bed, or even playing with toys with Gracie. So he's a happy boy. If you have recently experienced a CRF diagnosis for your fur baby, then I hope that something in this video has helped you understand what's involved and has made you feel more confident with looking after them. Apart from that, thank you very much for sharing our week with me and with Maxie. Bye.